Hello, Gills fans, and welcome to the View from the Medway Fancast in partnership with the Gillingham Supporters Club. Today, we are thrilled to have with us, as you can now see on screen, Vince Bartram, who is celebrated by many Gills fans of a certain vintage for his significant contributions to our club. Born on August the 7th, 1968 in Birmingham, Vince's football career began at Wolverhampton Wanderers before he made a pivotal move to Gillingham that would define much of his legacy. After establishing himself as the club's first choice goalkeeper, he played a vital role in Gillingham's thrilling ascent through the ranks of English football in the late 1990s. He fast became a fan favourite during his time at Priestfield, amassing over 200 appearances for the Gills. His most memorable moments, though, came when he helped guide Gillingham to the Division 2 playoff final, where we, of course, narrowly lost to Man City on penalties. However, the following season, under his watchful gaze in goal, he and the team triumphed against Wigan Athletic to earn promotion to the second tier for the first time in the club's history. A historic achievement that resonates in Gillingham lore. After retiring, though, from playing in 2004 due to a wrist injury, Vince channeled his passion for football into coaching. As a Level 3 FA coach, he's dedicated over a decade to youth development at Southampton, nurturing the next generation of goalkeepers. His time at Gillingham, though, marked by tenacity and leadership, has shaped his coaching philosophy. Join us today as we delve into Vince's incredible journey, focusing on his impactful years, of course, at Gillingham and the challenges he faces, the joys of contributing to the rich history of our club. Well, let's get started. Vince, welcome to the show.
Evening, Matt. Thank you for that. I don't know whether to feel emotional or old when you go through all that.
It's like a version of This Is Your Life, just a little bit shorter and without the big red book. For those of us certain vintage Gills fans, you will know that.
You've got to come through the door in a minute.
Look, Vince, first off, thank you so much for coming on tonight and having a chat with me. Let's jump straight in because, obviously, I mentioned earlier, obviously you started your career at Wolves, but probably you made a really big move when you were quite young. You managed to, obviously, you moved to Arsenal and you became sort of the second choice goalkeeper for Arsenal. I mean, what a team that was. I mean, how did that move come about?
I wasn't actually that young, Matt. I was probably 20. What year? It was 94. So I'd have been 26, coming up 27. I'd had 6 years at Wolves, which was great. They gave me the opportunity. I got my foot in the door and on that bottom rung of the ladder. But probably the first big move was going to Bournemouth. Harry Redknapp signed me at Bournemouth, and I had 3 years playing first team football, and that's where I really made a name for myself and got spotted by a few people. There was talk initially of Blackburn, Notts Forest, but then at the end of my contract, I had a phone call. I nearly went to Leicester. Brian Little, who'd given me my debut at Wolves, he rang me and invited me up to talk to Leicester. And while I'm on my way up to Leicester, it's a really long story. I won't bore you with it, but I got a phone call that, would I be interested in going and talking to Arsenal? So I spoke to Leicester the one day. My agent, myself, got in the car straight from there and went down to Arsenal. And had the tour and spoke to the people at Arsenal the next day, and basically I had a decision to make, Leicester or Arsenal. But ultimately it was that pull to put that shirt on and to say one day that you'd played for Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you did. I think you made, was it about 11 appearances? I think all in all for Arsenal. Obviously, you were, as I mentioned earlier, understudy to obviously David Seaman, who is, remarkable, undoubtedly one of the greatest goalkeepers to have graced the game. I mean, what was it like training with him on a daily basis?
It was an honour, a privilege, and it was an opportunity to learn. And not just Dave, Bob Wilson, the ultimate goalie coach, one of the original goalie coaches, probably the first goalie coach in England. He sort of finished playing and started coaching the likes of Pat Jennings, and then he had John Lukic, and Dave Seaman. So to go and work with Bob and to see firsthand England's number one. I knew I was going to be number two. I knew that there wouldn't be that many chances to play, but it was an opportunity. I signed a 2-year contract, and it was to be around the likes of Dave, Bob. To train every day with some of the top players, not just in England but in the world. The likes of Ian Wright, Tony Adams, Paul Merson at the time, and then during my time there, the sort of Dennis Bergkamp came in, Patrick Vieira, Petit. It was just an honour and a privilege to be there. And like I said earlier, to pull that shirt on, I think it was 11 times and one League Cup appearance against Sheffield Wednesday. But that was immense pride for me. And I was in that first team squad for the 2 years, and then things moved on. I was looking to get away. I got injured, and by the time I was fit again, there were 5 keepers. Dave Seaman, John Lukic, Alex Manninger, and then myself and Lee Harper. Fighting for a reserve game. And it took me 2 years to get away, and eventually moved to Gillingham.
So, I mean, obviously, how did the move then to Gillingham actually come about? Because I believe initially it was as a loan, wasn't it? And then you signed permanently after that. But, I mean, obviously, how did that come about? And obviously, when you heard Gillingham were interested, was it almost an instant decision for you to move? Or
Yeah. I mean, there was one simple reason, and that was Tony Pulis. I played for Tony at Bournemouth for 2 years. I've got so much respect for the guy. I still see him now. I saw him a couple of weeks ago. He lives in Bournemouth. His grandson's at Southampton, and I do a bit of scouting, and I see him regularly. When he was the manager, I'd played for him before. He'd got Big Jim Stannard was his goalkeeper, but he brought in a couple of other loan keepers before. I think Neil Moss had been in, and 1 or 2 others. Jim was coming to the end, and I think Tony wanted, a new number one for the club. And he rang me, and it was initially I think it was a loan just to get it done quickly. But within days, I didn't even. Well, Tony just in Tony's best way, it's a permanent. It was paperwork really. It was to get round the fact that they'd only got one more loan, whereas if they made mine a permanent, they'd get another loan. It was coming to the end of the season, transfer deadline, so it was a technical thing. It didn't really matter to me. I needed to get away from Arsenal. I'd been on a week-to-week contract for 2 years, so the chance to go to Gillingham and sign commit to 2 years, I think it was at the time, and get my teeth into a project with a manager that I knew. With a couple of other players, Adi Pennock, Neil Masters was there at the time. I knew 2 or 3 of the players. And I sensed the ambition straight away, and it was just exactly what I wanted to be part of.
Oh, absolutely! I wouldn't know. Obviously, I'm glad you did come and join us. I said to you off screen. I was lucky enough to bump into you a few times, and you were a pleasure and a great player to watch, and you always having a chat with the kids behind the goal. But obviously you mentioned there that, you joined the club mainly because of Tony Pulis. Obviously you'd worked with him previously. And, obviously on a day-to-day basis, obviously we never get to see this. We never get to see how he is when he's training you. But did he really come across like what you see when you see videos of him on coaching in the dressing room? Is that literally exactly what you saw on the training pitch day in, day out? Or, was there a little bit more to him?
No, he was boring. It was so rigid. The training was seriously, it was. He instilled. Name drop now. I went to Arsenal with George Graham, and they were renowned for the back four. And George Graham, twice a week, would work on the back four on sending wide players inside, on getting the defending the middle of the goal with your centre halves where you're strong. And the principles with Tony were exactly the same. I know you had a guy on, recently. He's probably told the story about the Eggers. We'd have Carlos Saber and Bob Taylor, and Tony would work an hour with them at the training ground, and they just work on finishing on little combination plays. And myself, the goalie and the youth team keepers, we'd go down and work with the keepers, with Bob and Carl, and then they'd go after an hour, and the rest of the lads would come walking over, and Tony would be like, "Here's the Eggers, that wave at the cream. They're the ones. They're going to win your games. You keep me a clean sheet," and they'd win a game. And that was his philosophy. And like you say, you've seen on YouTube I think they did the documentary where you saw his team talks, and you'd literally go out spitting feathers and wanting to win, and wanting to give everything. And if you didn't win, you knew as a team you could look each other in the line, and you knew that you'd given everything because the manager demanded that. And he definitely brought the best out of me, Tony. And I think subsequently Peter Taylor and Hesse, the success that the club had after Tony left was in no small part down to what Tony had built and ingrained in the mentality and the instilled in the club almost.
Yeah, I think I even remember sort of reading stories about him having to, go and do some like washing kits or, go and picking up stuff. And, he really did embed himself into the club. And obviously, look, it was a shame in that 99-2000 season, obviously getting, we fought really hard that entire season, got to the end, and obviously to come up against Man City. And I'm sure you guys would have wanted to go out and obviously do your absolute best for him. But I'm gonna have to try and take you back to that day if you can remember it. But we're 2-0 up. We're just coming into the 90th minute. Were you pretty much thinking that's it, job done? Time to move on, or did you could you sense that they were going to get back into that game at that point?
No, I've done interviews over the years, and again, talking about big guy. The second goal went in. Our second goal, we made it 2-0. When no one ever celebrated with me, they all ran off and celebrated at the other end. And Guy was that shattered in that game. He stayed in the half, and me and him sort of celebrated together. And I've said previously, we hugged each other, and I don't know if it's a regret or it's just in my mind. I remember, I don't know if I said to him or he said to me, like, we've done it. And I remember looking up at the old Wembley scoreboard where you had the Gillingham 2, Man City 0, and you had the time and in a circle. And I remember seeing Gillingham 2, Man City 0, 90 minutes. And, it's, I know again, some of the other lads, Carlos Saber's spoken, and he gets quite emotional and he's still upset about it. I don't know whether it's just me, my makeup. You can't change it. So, there's no reason to be upset, to get emotional about it. It was something that happened. I was part of it. You're part of history. That day we were part of, not a pleasant history, but we made up for it. So it's something you can't change, and things make you stronger. And I do believe that day made us stronger long term.
How soon did it take you to get over it? Was it literally an instant, sort of as soon as you got the stadium? Oh, about 10 years. Well, I think it might have made it even worse that the equalising goal was scored by a friend of yours, shall we say, Mr. Obviously Paul Dickoff. Again, something I didn't realise. Obviously, I think you both were at Arsenal together, obviously for a point. Both really good mates. Was that almost a bit of a kick in the teeth, and it was him that scored the goal, or did you always know he was a talented footballer like that?
Oh, he's a great lad. I've had a lot of time with him. His wife and my wife, they were good friends, and we used to socialise, the four of us. We were inseparable at Arsenal, and you know, we we ran away and got married to again, another thing. The morning of the final, Dickie rang me and he said, Vince, he said, I've made a bit of an error. He said, I've done a story for one of the papers and I mentioned that I was your best man. Now, it wasn't actually my best man. Him and his wife were the only people at our wedding. So we ran away to a registry office and they were witnesses. But this paper had done this interview and Dickie had mentioned best man. So they'd done a mock-up of like in the morning suits and everything, imagining like it was a big church wedding. And it was nothing like that. But, that was the story. And, like I say, I look at the highlights and the footage now and, it brings a smile to my face, and I don't begrudge him. He's living the dream. He's a legend at Man City. He's an ambassador for him. He's traveling the world. So I think back now and I think, well, maybe if I'd have saved that shot in the last minute, would I be traveling the world for Gills at the top of the Premier League with a Saudi owner? I mean, who knows? So it's like I say, it was history. We can't change it. To me, there's no point sort of bearing a grudge, and if it was going to happen to someone, he's a good mate and he's a top bloke. He may look a horrible person on the pitch and he's horrible to play against, but I can assure you, as soon as that whistle goes, he's a top bloke.
Did you still speak to him on a regular occasion? Yeah,
you still speak to him. His City connections, they obviously did a big thing last year, the 25th anniversary, or this year. It's that so there was they made a bit of an issue of it, and I went up and did some filming, me and him, and I don't speak to him as much as I should, but I'm one of those. I've got friends from the Midlands from the past, and we don't speak all the time, but I know a true friend is when you get together, it doesn't matter how long you've not spoken for, when a friend's a friend, and Dickie's definitely one of them.
There's always obviously I've seen a few photos of you guys hanging out together, and you really do look like good friends.
You've seen those photos.
I'm sure he will keep trying to rub it in that he's got one over you at Wembley, and but look, obviously the year later, obviously under a different manager, under Peter Taylor, we did manage to make it back to Wembley, and obviously had Wigan. Before we go on to the actual game itself, Peter Taylor as a manager, I'm going to assume he was pretty much a polar opposite to Tony Pulis. Did you notice that as well?
Yeah, totally. And I think he, I wouldn't say he. I've never sat down with Peter and asked him. Again, I saw him a few weeks ago at a game. I'm at Eastleigh. I work with the first team keepers at Eastleigh, and we played Dagenham. And PT's at, he's working for Dagenham at the moment, and I had a little chat with him. I can't say for sure, but he came in. He'd been sort of England under 21s, and he was renowned as a good coach. I'm sure he probably thought he was going to come in and change the direction of the team, whether he changed the direction of the club, but. Initially he wanted to change the formation. We'd been three centre halves with myself, AD, Ash, Guy, Matty Bryant, maybe different combinations, but essentially we played three centre halves, and I think Peter wanted to play four at the back. He didn't want that three centre halves. He wanted a flat four, and a couple of his early decisions early in the season, he dropped myself and Guy for an away game at Stoke. I think it was the August bank holiday. Different reasons for myself. He had a chat with me, and he then brought in a goalie coach, and that was one of the things that I was keen on. But Guy, he dropped Guy, but he had to bring us both back for the game. I think it was Cambridge the week after, and we hadn't had a great start to the season. A bit of a hangover from Wembley. And we went to Cambridge. Guy scored. I came back in the team because the lad that he played was on international duty. Anthony Williams, I think his name was. He'd come in from Blackburn under 21s on a loan. But we came back in. We got a result at Cambridge, and that was it. I stayed in the team. Guy stayed in the team, and we kept that system, and we just went from there. So I think PT, from his whether it was a decision he made that he wanted to change it, and then he realised, or whether circumstances dictated to him. But I think he I wouldn't say changed his philosophy, but I think he saw pretty quickly, and to his credit, maybe he thought, oh, actually, I don't need to change too much, and there was just more tinkering and than wholesale changes.
Yeah, it was. I mean, this was, I did notice. Obviously, yeah, we didn't have a great start to that season, but look, the season ended definitely on a high note when obviously we got back to Wembley. Had obviously Wigan in the final. But before the final, we did have a very tough game. We had to play again, obviously, the playoffs against Stoke. I think it was that we were 2-0 down in like the first, 20 minutes or whatever it was. It was,
I think it was 7 or 8 minutes we were 2 down.
Wasn't it? And then obviously, Andy Hassan-Tyler scores a screamer from like 90 yards out or whatever it was. It was a ridiculous goal. I was actually at the game, sat behind that goal, and I remember it, going in, and every single Gills fan on the coach home was, even though we had lost the game, 2-1, we were singing at the top of our voices because we knew we were going to get back to Fortress Priestfield and we were going to turn them over. But that was from the fans. Did the players think that?
I think that goal was massive. I think if we hadn't scored that goal, we'd have still had a chance. But I think that goal, there was no doubt in our minds. It gave us so much confidence. Like you say, teams didn't enjoy coming to Priestfield. It was being redeveloped at the time. The changing rooms were around the back. The old sports centre or leisure, whatever it was at the back. Tiny little changing rooms. It was intimidating, and we knew how to play it and how to make the most of it. And they lost their heads on that second leg night. They had 2 sent off, and we went to injury to extra time. Sorry, but we were confident, and I don't think there was ever a minute's doubt from the minute the ball hit the back of that net at Stoke. I think we were the belief was there, and it was just a case of getting the job done.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. As I said, we did not stop singing on that coach home all the way back from Stoke. It was a long journey, but it was, even though we lost, we definitely felt, us fans, we definitely felt like we were going to do them over. But then obviously, yes, we did. We beat them, and we get back through to Wembley. And we came up against obviously a very strong Wigan team. They'd done really well in that league that year. But obviously, with what happened the previous year, do you remember when you went into that game? Were you going with any kind of trepidation? Did you think we don't want to have the same result as we had last year, or were you literally just treating it as a brand new game, one off, start a game, not really thinking about the season previous?
No, we knew they were a good team. They got good players. We knew that. We knew they got good forwards, especially. I think is it Howarth and Barlow. They were recognised as probably as good as anything in the league. So we knew that they were good. But we also knew that we'd beaten them not too long. I think sort of March, April time. Apparently we beat them. That was a game I missed. I was stuck on the motorway. But we had beaten them. So we knew they weren't. They weren't, something to be scared of. We'd given City, even though we'd gone the year before, and Man City, no one gave us a hope. We needed it. So there was nothing for us to fear. We'd got experience at Wembley. It was just a case of going and righting the wrongs almost. But we also had to respect the opposition. And we knew we had to be at our best, and I think we certainly were. It probably wasn't as exciting a game initially as the City game. I think it took it was a bit of a slow burner. It took a while to get going, but boy, when it got going, it got going.
It certainly did, and obviously it was a very end-to-end game. I know obviously they had a player sent off, didn't they? Again, I think we were. I think we went 2-1 up. Then they scored near the end.
No, we went 2-1 down. We were
2-1 down. So then scored, and then obviously going into extra time.
Yeah.
But really at no point did that kind of almost that fear then sink in that that it could have been a repeat of last year. You were still confident going forward.
When you're 2-1 down with 7 minutes left to play, you're like, oh crikey, is it going to happen? And then we scored, and I think everyone think, oh no, it's pens again. We're footballers, but we're only human. These whatever people are thinking in the stands. You try not to think about too much. You're trying to be positive, but things do go through your mind. I do remember thinking, here we go, penalties again. But that doesn't mean that for the 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever's remaining, you're not trying your utmost to make sure. Again, the Tony Pulis mentality. If we don't win it, we don't lose it. So the worst case scenario was we go to penalties. The worst case scenario was, it never crossed my mind that we were conceding again and we were going to lose again once we'd equalised. But the demons are in your head, and it's controlling those demons. And again, that group of players, love them to bits, and fans love them. It was just such an honour to be a part of that group and that squad of, not just that squad of players, the squad from the year before, and the lads for the 2 years after that then survived in the championship as well. The mental side, playing for I will say little old Gillingham, when you're playing Notts Forest, Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, West Brom, there were massive clubs in those leagues, and we held our own against them, and that was the quality of where the club was at the time.
No, we were, and I think on the first day of the season, the following season, I think we were 1-0 up within the first, was it 5 minutes? And I remember all the fans singing, "We're top of the league." I don't think the game ended the way we wanted it to, but after 5 minutes, we'd scored in the championship. We were all happy with that. Yeah. I want to go on and ask you about your injury, because obviously you mentioned a bit about it earlier. I think it was Millwall, wasn't it? You broke your wrist. Yeah. You were out for obviously quite a while, but I'm guessing obviously you'd always planned on trying to get back fit, get back and start playing again. But how come obviously it was just that bad of a break that there was no chance of you ever playing again, or what did you actually do to the arm?
It was it was Millwall. It was literally the very last kick of the game. We were 4-3 up. I'd made the save. He'd gone out for a corner. Dennis Wise puts a corner in. I come and I got a punch, and I just remember hitting something. To this day, I don't know what I hit. I think I hit the ball, and then I just remember sort of being in midair and heading sort of head first towards the ground, and I put my hand down, and then the next thing I'm sort of lying flat on the floor, and my arms in front of me. My wrist was up there. I knew straight away it was broken. And then George Johnson, the physio, came on. We called him Ming. He had a beard, a goatee. We reckoned he looked like Emperor Ming. Ming came on and he went, "Come on, Vince, the game's over." And I looked up, and to me, it had only been like 20, 30 seconds. I looked, the pitch was empty, the stands were empty, everyone had gone. I was like, I didn't realise the game had finished. And so anyway, they took me off. I went to hospital. They X-rayed it, and I'd broken it in 5 places. It was a mess. And again, I've told this story. People listening have probably heard it so many times, but none of the lads. I had a night in hospital, and then the hospital released me the next morning. Obviously it'd be private, so I'd got an appointment then on the Tuesday to go and see a specialist, about surgery. But not one of the lads had rung me. I'm sat home on the Monday morning, the Tuesday morning, no one had rung me. And then all of a sudden the phone goes, and I didn't realise the lads had Monday off. And it was only when they went in Tuesday morning, no one realised that I was missing in the change room after the game on the Saturday, because I'd gone straight into the physio and off to hospital. No one knew I was even injured. So I start getting phone calls, and then Tony Warner, the Millwall keeper, rings me, and he tells me that he's the one that hit me and broke my wrist. So it was just bizarre. But anyway, I'm waffling now. The actual, sort of the retirement bit, I'd had surgery. So I'd lost my place. Jason Brown had come in and taken over as number one. And I wouldn't say I was disillusioned. I was out of contract the end of the season. I was 36 years old. I wouldn't say I didn't know where I was going, but retirement had sort of crossed my mind. I was thinking, what's next? And then, like I say, I had the surgery, and that's my hand now. That hand I can get to there. This hand, I don't know if you can see that. I can't get it flat. I struggle if I go to the drive-through at McDonald's, get my change out the window because I can't get my hand flat, basically. So they were then talking about shaving a bit off the radius or the ulnus, whatever it is, and realigning the arm. And I was going to be out for 12 months, and I was like, look, no, that's not going to happen. So it would, the word retirement was mentioned to me, and I wouldn't say I jumped at it, but it was, if it was going to happen, it was as good a time, for it to happen as it could have been. And it took that decision out of took it away from me, and made the decision for me, basically. So yeah, it's not a sob story. It was, in a way, it was, it might have been a bit of relief, or it just made it a bit quicker than I probably envisaged.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I wasn't at the Millwall game, but I can remember the break, and obviously, we ended up getting Jason Brown in, who was a very good goalkeeper, obviously Welsh international. But I think I was always praying deep down inside that you would have come back, and then obviously to get the news that you were retiring and it was because of the injury, it must have been a bit heartbreaking. Did you find it? Obviously I know you're still in football, obviously with Eastleigh and that, but did you find it quite hard when you retired? Did you miss in the sort of that team camaraderie and that?
No, not initially. I mean, so I think the game, I broke my wrist back end of September. It was probably Christmas. I think it was Christmas, January before. I tried the rehab. Obviously, I'd had the ARP, had a little Meccano set, I had 5 little pins coming out, and 3 bars holding it. It was it wasn't nice. So I had that for about 4 to 6 weeks of rehab at the club with Ming, and trying little things. And by the Christmas, we realised that the mobility wasn't there in the arm and in the hand. So I think it was probably New Year's Day that I saw the specialist again, and like I say, the decision was made to retire. And I went into the club. I went into Priestfield and Hesse. I went to see Hesse, and I sort of said, Hesse, I'm going to have to retire. I'm not able to perform at the level I want to. And Hesse turned to me and he said, what are your plans? Are you going to stay in football? And I remember it again to this day. I resolutely went, no. I wanted away. I'd had enough of, it was all I'd ever known from 17 years of age. And I needed a break from it. I hear managers, say they want to get away from football for a bit. And I needed that. I had no intention of sort of carrying on. I was doing my badges while I was at Gills. Darren Hare was at the club with the youth team. He was an FA tutor, and he'd got us starting doing our level 1s, our level 2s, and our B licenses. And so I'd started doing my coaching badges, but I had no intention at that stage of really doing anything. When I first retired, I was looking for work. I did a little bit of coaching. Brian Ball, the academy manager, who's still at Gills, he invited me down, and I did a few little sessions for the goalkeepers in the academy. Nothing major, nothing sort of groundbreaking. AD Pennock then got a job at Welling in the youth team at Welling, or might be in Ebbsfleet actually. And I went down and did a couple of sessions for him. But I was working in a betting shop. I was working in Essex in betting shops for William Hill. I was virtually, my focus was away from football. I then moved back to Bournemouth. My wife's from Bournemouth, and the plan was always that's where we'd move back to, and family life would be based in Bournemouth. Came down here and started selling cars for a Vauxhall dealership. And it was probably another 18 months after that, so probably nearly 4 years after I actually retired, that I got the opportunity to go back into coaching. And basically, it was that's what I knew. I wasn't very good at selling cars. I wasn't very good at sitting in. I didn't want to sit in smoky betting shops. They were smoking in those days, but they're a bit different now. But it took me 3 or 4 years to realise football's what I know, and I wanted to see if I was good at the coaching side.
Well, from what I've seen, I think you are pretty decent at coaching. I've seen a few of your videos, but I want to talk to you about a story that I read literally just the other day. Something. The title always got me with this story. It was that your magic hands not only save goals, but also
my greatest save
have saved people's lives. Yeah. So your wife, obviously a fair few years ago, obviously you'd found a lump from your wife, and tell us about that. Talk us about the story of that, because I've read the article, but I'd love to hear it from your mouth.
I think Jules fans watching of a certain vintage, would know my wife Tracy. She was probably as well known around the club, with sort of player of the year dues and Christmas parties and stuff like that. She was at as many games as I was, and the fans probably knew Tracy as much as they knew me. 2010, I think it was New Year's Day. It was New Year. We'd been up to the Dickoffs. We'd been to see them in Manchester, and we'd driven back home. Got back to Bournemouth. New Year's, I think it was New Year's Day. Doing what couples do, and I sort of said, "Oh, what's that?" And she was like, "What?" And she had a little. She's like, oh, yeah, never noticed that before. And she said, I'll get that looked at. Next day she rang the doctor. Within a week, we've got an appointment at the hospital. They took a scan. We need to look at that. Did a biopsy, and within 2-3 weeks, she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer. It was a rare one. It was an aggressive one. But fortunately, they said straight away, we've caught it early. It was treatable. So we then started a course she started a course of chemotherapy. She had an operation, a lumpectomy, and then a course of radiation. And sort of, 6 months from when it was diagnosed, she was given the news that she was clear of it. Obviously, then you're monitored for a period. But like I say, that was probably the summer of 2010. So, touch wood, we're talking 14, 15 years ago now. And something that, you don't wish on anyone. You don't wish anyone to go through, horrific, the chemotherapy. She had, spells in hospital where she was neutropenic and she was in isolation. Her blood count was, horrendously low, and there were some horrible times. But there are also times that, again, was just so proud of how she dealt with it, but also how the family dealt with it. And you come through the other side almost stronger, and you think that you're better people for it. And now, she works for a charity. She works for the local air ambulance, but cancer charities and breast cancer awareness is massive for her, side by side with the charity that she works for as well.
So definitely up there with one of your greatest ever saves, then, yeah.
Yeah, I made one at Burnley in '92. That was probably just as yeah, absolutely no. Whether it was the greatest one, it was the most important one, and it's yeah. And just any guys out there, make sure that you pester the wives, and every now and then you have a little inspection, because it's you could save their life one day.
It's also a very good excuse for men to do what men like doing.
Exactly.
So I have just seen we've had a comment come through on one of our Facebook pages. Chris has kindly written it up for us. So from Martin Baker, goalkeeping has changed so much since Vince played. More is asked of them to play a kind of sweeper role. Do you feel you could have adapted if that had been a thing in your day? So yeah, do you think you could have sort of being that kind of sweeper goalkeeper like you see now, playing more with your feet, or are you really more of an old?
So who sent the question in?
Oh, so this was Martin Baker.
Martin, I great reverence, and I wouldn't never want to argue with any Gills fans, and I love them all to bits. I'll take reverence over one thing though. I felt I was a sweeper keeper. I felt that, Tony Pulis, higher, you need to start higher. Some days I was that high, I'm looking, thinking I'm 40 yards from a goal. I think what he's talking about now is the playing out from the back and the feet thing. Again, I was at Southampton in the academy for 12 years. I work in, with goal. I still do a bit of scouting. I think you might touch on that in a bit. I do scouting of academy goalkeepers. I'm a little bit old-fashioned, and what position did I play, Matt?
Left back.
No, I was a
goalkeeper.
Goalkeeper. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a goalkeeper. Yeah. I've not yet heard someone call them a player out from the backer, or make a nice pass to the fullback. I was a goalkeeper. I kept the ball out the net, and the modern game, I think I'm watching young keepers, and I'm watching keepers that, playing in the league, and they're making mistakes and they're doing things. And I'm like, I dread to think what Tony Pulis and George Graham and, some of the managers I've played for, Bruce Rioch at Arsenal, if I'd have passed the ball to the opposition forward in our penalty area and they scored, but it almost seems like it's acceptable now, and I don't know. I'm a little bit old-fashioned, and I think the one thing I wish I'd worked. Now I was Bournemouth, so 23, 24 years old when the back pass rule came in. And I work with young keepers now, and I get them to practice with a weaker foot. I get them to practice these things. I wish I'd have been better with my weaker foot, because 23, the only thing I used my left foot for was standing on, so I could kick it with my right foot. I'm sure if I was younger and I'd got the coaching that some of the guys had now, I'd been more, more sort of, what's the word? I'd have more prowess with my left foot. I'm sure I would have done, but I think I did all right with what I got.
I'm trying to think back. I can't remember any major incident with you in goal where you've pretty much given anything away. Not off the top of my head, although I'm sure there'll be a Gills fan out there probably frantically Googling and going to up a video.
Facebook will crash now with them all writing in saying, stop porting.
Well, look. You did touch on it a minute ago, and I said to you earlier we were going to have a chat about this. But obviously, currently you are a goalkeeping coach at Eastleigh, but as you mentioned, you are also out there scouting. I will say what the club is, but it's Man City, correct?
Man City, yes, yeah.
Did you take a bribe from them? Is that what it was, or? But I mean, obviously,
25 years. Yeah, 25 years to come out.
Obviously, while you're out there, obviously doing your scouting, you're out there, obviously you're looking around. I'm guessing you're travelling all up the country. Do Man City literally give you a sort of a list and say this is what we want from our goalkeeper, or do they would just go off you by if you said, oh, he's a brilliant keeper, sign him up, they'll just go off that?
Yeah, so I think let's start. Take it. I was at Southampton. I'd been at Southampton for 12, 13 years in the academy. I'd been there, development goalkeeper coach. So I coached everything from the under-23s right down to pre-academy at Southampton. And the last 2 or 3 years, I'd moved away from the coaching side and moved on more to the scouting and development of players, development of the goalkeeping coaches and the scouting side. So when I left Southampton in 2 years ago, it would be 2 years ago next week, probably, I was looking for work. But you get to know people, any industry, you network, you get to know people. And there's a guy called Andy Mulliner he'd been Wolves' under-23 goalie coach, and then Birmingham, and then Norwich, and then he'd gone to Man City. And about the same time I moved to the scouting side at Southampton, Moles had moved to the scouting side at Man City. And like I say, in the summer, I'd lost my job at Southampton, been made redundant. Moles rang me in the summer and said, look, Vince, I'd just got the Eastleigh job at the first team job. He said, look, I need a regional scout for goalkeepers in the south. So basically, my remit is the south area, primarily Bournemouth, Portsmouth, Southampton, Brighton, Reading. I might touch into, sort of West London, Chelsea, Fulham, down to the southwest, Plymouth, Exeter, that sort of area. But I'll go wherever they want me. And it's purely casual. I get a fee for every Sunday. I'll go watch a game. I get expenses for going, and I get a fee for writing a report. But I enjoy it. It keeps me involved. It keeps me networking. It keeps me visual on an academy side where I'm working sort of with Eastleigh on the National League at first team level. I like it. It just gives me another string to my bow. City have been great. We have a bit like we're having now. We have a monthly meeting with just the goalie coaches, and there are, like I did at Southampton. I had to write what I wanted from a Southampton goalkeeper. I now get told what Man City want from a City goalkeeper. It's quite easy because you watch Edison every weekend on Match of the Day. So I've got a pretty good idea what they're after. Unfortunately, they're after the best of the best. So it's you're trying to find that the real quality, and it's not easy.
Well, I'm going to have to ask then: has there been anyone that you've scouted so far that has either graced us with a Premier League appearance or anything like that?
No, and scouting. You can have do all the work in the world, and sometimes it's not necessarily, you might not be looking for the next one, you might be looking at what's out there to compare with what you've got. So a lot of what City are doing, they've got their own keepers in their academy, and it'd be wrong for City to spend what they spend on, or any club spend on their own academy, just to think, well, we're going to find better and we're going to pay whatever it is, compensation, or find someone from somewhere else to replace the ones we're working with here. A lot of the time, you're just confirming that the ones you've got are probably the best ones anyway. So at the moment, I've only been there, like I say, just over 12 months. It's a long process, especially when you're talking with young goalkeepers. I'm at a disadvantage geographically for keepers in our area. With the rules of the Premier League, of VPPP, and academy football. For very good reasons, for child protection You can only sign players within a certain area, a certain age. You can then move them with the school and stuff like that. But it is a big decision, and at the moment, there are boys from the south that have gone to City. There's none that I've been directly involved with, but there are things that I've been indirectly involved with. So it's it is a massive thing, and it takes more than one scout to be involved in the signing of a boy. It's a long process, and I'm part of that process. So it's enjoyable, and like I say, it's a different aspect to my other day-to-day stuff with Eastleigh.
Brilliant. Well, when you are out there having a look around, if you do come across the next, Vince Bartram, make sure you send him Gillingham's way. All right.
I will.
Let's go back to the duel. Obviously, I will say first off, again, thank you so much for coming on. But let's go back to your Gillingham days, and I just want to ask you a bit about some of the players that you did have the joy of playing with. The likes of Andy Thompson, obviously you had Ty Good and Andy Hessenthaler. Do you still speak to many of them?
I speak to crikey, who do I speak to? Speak to Ash regularly. He's an agent now, so he's always ringing me trying to get Eastleigh to sign some of his players. I see Guy regularly. I played a testimonial locally. Guy lives in Portsmouth, in Bournemouth. Crikey, I'll get there in a minute. He lives just outside Southampton, so he's not too far away. I see him. I messaged AD a while ago. There's a few every now and then. Hesse, social medias. That's I criticised it earlier about the feedback you might get. But the one thing is you can keep in touch, and even though we don't get together as much as we can, the banter's still there. I can assure you that, and the feelings are still there.
Okay, well, I'm going to put you on the spot then with this next question. Obviously, as it is 25 years this year since next year, so since we beat Wigan in that playoff final, would you be up then for a big group reunion, getting all the players back down to Priestfield one day? Would you be up for that?
I think we've mentioned it. Even the club, the away shirt this year, the retro shirt with the squad in the back. The guys at the club. I was part of the video that promoted that, and I think it was mentioned that there was talk that I don't know if I should say, but it was mentioned. I've not heard anything since, so whether it's gone quiet, I don't know. Whether they've thought that the bar bill might be too much getting us lot back together, but no.
I said the other week it could be running into the hundreds of thousands. I'm sure.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure we do it for a party shandy each, but no, it's something that's long overdue. And I definitely it's easy saying, let's definitely do it. Getting a time, and we're all over the place, we're all over the country. It needs to be done, and it could be a bit of a headache the next day, though.
I think we should definitely do it. I think I should also get an invite, and then I can bring Andy Thompson his tie back that he gave me. So yeah, a couple of quick little.
Well, that'd be a good one. We've all got to turn up in our ties, and it's a fine for anyone that's not got the ties.
Yeah, I'll be Andy. Let's do a couple of quick fire questions then for the last few minutes then of the chat. So just in terms of Gillingham players here, so. Funniest Gillingham player that you played with? Who was the one that was always on the jokes?
Adi Pennock. Not even. No one would even question that. He was the joker of the pack.
Yeah. Okay, you're all on a night out in the Nycle nightclub. Who's the guy at the end of the night still standing?
Me.
You. Yeah.
Me at the bar with the whip, with the kitty, going, where's everyone gone?
Okay, you have to go to war. Who's the man in the trench next to you?
Oh, Smudger.
Yeah.
Paul Smith. Yeah.
Oh,
he runs through a brick. Maybe him or Hesse was a close one, but yeah, I'll go with Smudger. He'd run through a brick wall if he had to.
Perfect. Okay, and last one. The one footballer from Gills who you wouldn't let your daughter date.
Most of them.
Probably
Trigger. Well, no, there's an easy answer to that. I haven't got a daughter, so there you go.
There you go. Brilliant. Well, we're going to come on to the last question now. This is the one I always do. This is my little 3, 2, 1. So what I would like to answer is 3 of the best players you've played against, whether it's training or in a match, your 2 favourite grounds you've ever played at. And I'd love you to, and maybe I'm going to do a bit of scouting for Gills here, 1 up-and-coming goalkeeper that we should be looking out for.
Right, okay. So the 3 players, played against, I played against Alan Shearer. He was unreal. He had everything. He could score all types of goals. He could score headers. Volleys, overhead kicks. He was. When you played against him, he was a tough opponent.
Probably the most underrated celebration in football history. Just that.
When he scored past me, I wasn't even looking, so I wouldn't even know. I just knew when he hit a shot. If you managed to get your hands on it, you felt it. He was strong. He was a man. He was a proper. It's probably what you call an old-fashioned centre forward. Probably not in the ilk of some of the modern, tippy tappy. You could give him a whack, and he'd come back and he'd give you a whack even harder. Just full respect for him when you played against him. Probably Zola, Gianfranco Zola. Unfortunately played against him in the quarterfinal with Gills, but I've also had the misfortune of playing against him in Vets football, and oh my God, he was some player. What he could do with a football, he was a little magician. And then I'm going to go with one that I played with, probably the best football I've been on a football pitch with. And fortunate enough to see him every day in training, and that's Dennis Bergkamp. He was just, he was. Barry Ashby run him a close second, but Dennis just had the nod, just in case.
Yeah. I still that goal he scored against Newcastle, where he flicked it one way, ran round the other. I mean, he was absolute genius, and to be able to obviously, as you say, train with him and work with him, I bet that must have been absolutely amazing.
There was a video many years ago. You might have had it as a Christmas present. It was a video. That's how long it was. With 101 great goals. Well, you could have a video of 101 great Bergkamp goals. He was unreal. He was unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 favourite grounds then that you've played at.
Well, again, one is a bit biased and personal. Highbury. Again, the Gills lads. I'll never forget going back with the Gills. That amazing day. The Gills fans at the clock end. The game, running Arsenal, so close, and getting Arsene Wenger to bring Henry and Pires on for the last 15 minutes, because they were worried. But again, the likes of Smudge, some of the lads that hadn't been, to places like that, for them to see, I'll never forget seeing their face. I came out the dressing room after the game, and Smudge and Barry Ashby were talking to this guy in the corridor just before the Marble Hall at Highbury, and I went over. Mr. Dean, it was David Dean, Arsenal's chairman at the time, shook hands. And I just remember Smudge's face, like he looked at me, and after he said to me on the coach, he went, "I've been talking to this guy for 10 minutes. He said, he's nice as pie. He's saying how well we've done. He said, I never realised who it was until you came over." And then, that was, I just remember, some of the lads, that was a special place to play football.
I think obviously the other thing with Highbury is how close the crowd were to the pitch. I mean, you were literally on top of pretty much on top of the players, and really gave Highbury such a great atmosphere. And obviously I never got the joy, unlike you, of playing on the pitch, but I bet that was some experience playing.
It was, just it was the pitch. And nowadays every pitch is immaculate, but in those days, the groundsman won groundsman of the year every year. But apparently they have to have it the North one year and the South the year after, and every year it was the South. Highbury, Brad as the groundsman, he won it every year because the pit. It was just the place to play football. And then the other one, again, it's boring, but I'm going to say the old Wembley. To play football there, that walking out for both the playoff finals across the ground track with the fireworks, the national, the hairs on the back of your neck. If you've come, those were the occasions that you train every day for. You get up in the middle of winter and you do all the running in pre-season. To experience that. That's those are the days that you remember.
I've said this before on the pod, and I'll say it again. I am gutted that when they built the new Wembley, that they couldn't incorporate the Twin Towers into it, because that was such a sight walking up Wembley Way. But the ground itself, I mean, back with the old dog track, say, running around it was that lovely long walk from one end of the ground to the middle.
I know as a fan. As a fan, it was old. It was, I wouldn't say decrepit. I know that it had its issues, and the stories of the toilets and the terracing. But as a player, it was something. And I've been to the new Wembley. I've not been on the pitch. I've been to games, and it's a concert venue now. It sounds great. The acoustics are great. The seats are lovely and comfortable. But it's not a football stadium now to me. That was the old one.
Yeah, it doesn't feel the same, does it?
No.
Well, come on then. So the last one, and Brad and Shannon, if you are watching, make sure you get your pen and paper out so you can write this down. One up-and-coming goalkeeper then that we should be keeping an eye out for.
Well, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give you two for free, and then I'll give you one for the proper answer. So the two to cheat. There's a lad called Miles and there's a lad called Heath, and they're my boys. They're both doing really well. They're sort of playing local non-league, but I'm really proud of them. So I wanted to get that one in there. Heath's 18, playing men's step 5 football in the area. Getting rave reviews. Miles is 21. He's playing. Well, he's step 6 at the moment, but he's been step 5 and he's better than that, and he's maturing and coming on. So I didn't want to mention anyone else because I'm really proud of both of them, both goalkeepers. So there you go. So there's 2 for nothing. If I have to give you one name, and I probably shouldn't because you've got child protection. I've got to be that's part of my scouting. I'm not really supposed to do these sort of things, but no, there's a lad at Southampton that I spotted when the scouts brought him in to a trial at under 6, under 7. A lad called Riley. He's an under 12 at the moment. He's as good as anything I've seen, and I love him to bits. He's from the local area. Yeah, keep an eye out for a lad called Riley from Bournemouth. That's all I'll say.
Well, there you go, Jules fans. If you're betting men, go down the shop, put a 10 on Riley to be playing for England by the time he's 21 then. And if it doesn't come off, it's all Vince's fault.
No, because I spotted him. I didn't, I coached him for a couple of years. I've not coached him for a while, so it's the coaches since that are at fault, not me.
It's their fault. Okay, yeah. Vince, look, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us tonight. I'm sure we'll be going on for hours and hours and hours. Guys,
I feel like there's so much I've not said, and
do you know what? There was a lot of questions I wanted to ask. Some that maybe we needed to keep off, but no.
Go on, quickly. I'll throw one to you. What's the one question you wish you'd asked?
There was a question about a former chairman I would have liked to have asked, but we will leave that as it is. Maybe I'll ask you off there. But look,
Well played.
no,
Well played.
you've been absolutely great. Thank you for coming on. Guys, look, of course, you have of course been watching the View from the Medway Fancast, a view with Vince Bartram. As we have said, we're going to bring this up. We are. Oh, I've done that wrong. There you go. We are, of course, in partnership with the Gillingham Supporters Club. All the information is on there for you. So if you haven't, please join the Supporters Club. Guys, I've been Matt. He's been Vince. This has been The View from the Medway. Up the Gills.